Legovich for giving the floor. Good afternoon, dear participants and guests of the Kazan International Linguistic Summit Language Diversity in the Global World. Несмотря на то, что саммит продлится целых 5 дней, каждый из них будет очень напряжен. Вам представится возможность принять участие в 5 пленарных сессиях, на которых выступят 16 ведущих ученых-лингвистов из России, Нидерландов, Великобритании, Италии, Ирана, в 5 встречах с редакторами 12 ведущих лингвистических журналов базы данных Scopus из России, США, Великобритании, Испании, Сингапура, Польши, а также в 13 тематических сессиях саммита. Even though the summit will last for 5 days, each of these days will be very intense. You will have the opportunity to take part in 5 plenary sessions with talks from 16 leading linguists from Russia, the Netherlands, Great Britain, Italy, and Iran. In 5 meetings with editors of 12 leading linguistic journals of the Scopus database from Russia, the USA, Great Britain, Spain, Singapore, and Poland, as well as in 13 thematic sessions of the summit. В этом году Казанский международный лингвистический саммит посвящен проблемам языкового разнообразия в глобальном мире, важнейшей из которых является проблема сохранения, изучения и развития языков народов мира в условиях всеобщей глобализации. Именно данной проблеме и посвящена первая пленарная сессия саммита. This year, the Kazan International Linguistic Summit is dedicated to the problems of the language diversity in the global world. One of the most important is the problem of preserving, studying and developing the language of the peoples all around the world in the context of globalization. The first plenary session of the summit is dedicated to this problem. Слово для пленарного доклада предоставляется директору Института филологии и межкультурной коммуникации Казанского федерального университета, члену Президиума Совета при Президенте Российской Федерации по русскому языку, главному редактору научного журнала «Филология и культура» Philology and Culture и международного научного журнала «Татарика», доктору филологических наук, профессору Радифу Рифкатовичу Замалетдинову. Тема его выступления – «Сохранение и развитие языков и культур в глобальном мире». The floor for the plenary talk is given to the head of the Institute of Philology and Intercultural Communication of Kazan Federal University, member of the Presidium of the Council under the President of the Russian Federation for the Russian Language, Editor-in-Chief of the scientific journal Philologia и культура, Philology and Culture, and the International Scientific Journal Tatarika, Doctor of Philology, Professor Radifа Рифкатовича. The topic of his talk is preservation and development of language and cultures in the global world.
Добрый день, уважаемые участники.
Good afternoon, dear participants and guests of the summit. On behalf of the collective body of the Institute of Philology and Cultural Communication of Kazan Federal University, scientists, the philological community of the university and the Republic of Tatarstan, let me greet and thank you sincerely for your participation in this work. In world linguistics, Kazan and Kazan University are undoubtedly associated with the Kazan Linguistic School. As you know, it originated in the second half of the 19th century at the Kazan Imperial University, and its founder was an outstanding scientist who made an invaluable contribution to the development of world science, Ivan Alexandrovich Bauduin de Courtenay. In world linguistics, the Kazan Linguistic School is recognized as a paragon predicting the science of language. It was its representatives who first began to apply mathematical models in linguistics, which ultimately led to the active development of mathematical and subsequently computer linguistics at Kazan University and beyond. It was in Kazan that one of the most important trends in linguistics appeared, experimental phonetics, the achievements of which are now used in various fields, from the correction of speech pathologies to the creation of tools for the analysis and synthesis of speech. Through the efforts of representatives of the Kazan Linguistic School, Vasily Alexeyevich Bogoroditsky in particular, the first laboratory of experimental phonetics was established in Kazan, and the technology of experimental analysis of spoken speech, perfect for that time, was developed. More than 2 centuries of traditions of philological science and education are sustained and represented by the Institute of Philology and Intercultural Communication and a number of other structural subdivisions of Kazan Federal University. If Baudouin de Courtenay and his closest followers began research at the junction of linguistics with other sciences, laid the foundations for a number of interdisciplinary areas in linguistics, these areas are currently being actively developed by the modern generation of Kazan scientists in the field of clinical, cognitive, digital linguistics, as well as psycholinguistics, sociolinguistics, and linguistic methods. Thus, the staff of the Research Laboratory Text Analytics of our institute are working on the creation of a methodology and tools for automated linguistic analysis of natural language texts, in particular on the development of a parametric text model and the creation of a typology of texts. They are concerned with determining the difficulty of receiving texts in Russian, first of all, textbooks and teaching aids included in the federal list of textbooks approved by the Ministry of Education of the Russian Federation for use in Russian schools. According to the criteria of comprehensibility and appropriateness for school children, this work is carried out in collaboration with a number of leading scientific schools, such as Alexander Hakevich Laboratory of Computational Linguistics of the Institute for Information Transmission Problems of the Russian Academy of Sciences, the Center for Research and English Language Learning and Assessment, and the University of Bedfordshire, led by Professor Tony Green, Arizona State University Solet Lab, headed by Professor Daniel McNamara, Department of Information Technology of the Polytechnic University, Bucharest, under the guidance of Professor Mihai Dascălu and others. To date, the laboratory workers have received an inventor certificate for the database educational corpus of the Russian language with a volume of more than 5 million words. A formula for the readability of educational text in Russian has been developed, and on this basis, an analyzer of text in Russian Lingua has been created, which automatically analyzes 30 parameters of text in Russian. The analyzer calculates the correspondence of the text to its reading address, cognitive and linguistic abilities of the reader. For text in Russian, the correspondence to the year of study at school is indicated. And for text in Russian as a foreign language, an indication of the level of proficiency proposed in accordance with the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages. The laboratory is planning the creation of an automatic examiner that automatically evaluates students' written work, the creation of a digital platform for the assessment of textbooks and teaching materials with a volume of more than 10 million words, the development of a training program for active reading and thinking strategies, iStart.ru, aimed at being employed by students doing independent work, which can be used to build individual learning paths, etc. Our workers at the Linguistics and Artificial Intelligence Research Laboratory carry out important research in the field of historical linguistics. A computer model of the distribution and evolution of language families has been built, containing data on 5,500 languages. The main parameters of evolution have been calculated: the average lifetime of a language and the speed of movement of the population, a language speaker. The constructed computer model is most consistent with the modern state of languages, on the assumption that proto-languages arose independently in several places of the globe and did not spread from a single source. The staff of this laboratory has developed and compared 6 automatic methods for determining the ancestral home of language families. The 2 best methods have been put forward, and the conditions of their application have been described. Fundamental research on to generate semantic dictionaries using artificial intelligence has been carried out. For the first time, a dictionary of the Russian language with labels for the degree of concreteness and abstractness of words was created. It includes 1,500 words with the estimates of survey respondents and more than 20,000 words, with estimates worked out by the latest generation neural network. A similar dictionary for the English language has also been created, superior in quality to all previously compiled dictionaries. On the basis of the Institute of Philology and Intercultural Communication of Kazan Federal University, the research laboratory in Neurocognitive Studies is successfully functioning. A little while ago, in 2021, its workers conducted research in the field of diagnostics cognitive and speech rehabilitation of children with mental retardation, children with epilepsy, autism spectrum disorders, alalia, dyslexia, and dysgraphia, as well as non-specific reading and writing disorders. Cognitive and speech assistance to children with infantile cerebral palsy, craniocerebral traumas, genetic syndromes, as well as adult stroke patients is being provided. The laboratory staff, linguists, doctors, psychologists are implementing the results of their developments in the Speech Pathology Center of the University Clinic, as well as in a specialized kindergarten of Kazan Federal University for children with autism spectrum disorders. The project on studying the dynamics of the development of higher mental functions and speech in children and adolescents with epilepsy is being implemented. A toolkit for the express assessment of neuropsychological and speech status intended for the daily practice of neurologists, epileptologists, clinical psychologists, and linguists has been developed. The laboratory also conducts research related to the study of post-COVID disorders associated with neurological pathologies, cognitive impairments, and speech disorders. The specificity of the verbalization of sensations associated with post-COVID parosmia and parageusia is studied. Thanks to the active scientific and educational activity of the Institute of Philology and Intercultural Communication, as well as the Institute of International Relations, the Labaco Institute, the Institute of Psychology and Education, Kazan Federal University has been ranked among the best universities in the world in recent years, according to the results of philological subject rankings QS. In 2021, the university entered the top 200 of the QS subject ranking in linguistics, the top 250 in English language literature, and the top 300 in modern languages, being one of the 3 Russian universities that are included in all 3 QS language rankings. We see the guarantee of our achievement and successes and fruitful cooperation with leading domestic and foreign scientists, researchers, and practitioners, major scientific and educational centers, as well as professional associations. In my report, I have already voiced a number of them. I would also like to list our partners in the Russian Federation. These are practically all the institutes of the philological profile of the Russian Academy of Sciences, Moscow State University, and People's Friendship University of Russia, as well as the Russian Academy of Education, the Pushkin State Institute of the Russian Language, the Academy of Sciences of the Republic of Tatarstan, the Institute of History, Language and Literature of the Ufa Federal Research Center of the Russian Academy of Sciences, and many others. Starting with 219, we have begun active cooperation with the Permanent International Committee of Linguists. By the decision of this committee, the 21st International Congress of Linguists will be held in Kazan in 2023. Deputy Secretary General of this association, Secretary of the Organizing Committee of the 21st International Congress of Linguists 2023 in Kazan, Mr. Kamil Hamans is taking part in the work of the current summit. Taking this opportunity, I publicly express our gratitude to him for mutual understanding and productive cooperation. One of the main directions of the Institute of Philology and Cultural Communication of Kazan Federal University over the past decades has been active scientific and educational activities in the field of preservation and development of native, primarily Russian and Tatar languages and cultures. In modern environment of universal informational support and globalization, native languages need versatile support more than ever. The threat of the peoples losing their native languages, cultures, and traditions is becoming obvious, which gives rise to an urgent and large-scale problem of their preservation and development. According to UNESCO, half of the 6,500 languages existing in the world today are threatened with extinction. We know that if more than 30% of children of a particular nation do not learn their native language, it can disappear. Therefore, each of us should think about the situation and prospects for the preservation and development of the native languages and cultures. Kazan Federal University is located in a region where for many centuries speakers of different structured languages have lived compactly. Turkic, Finno-Ugric, Indo-European, and today there are 6 national republics that are part of Russia. In the last 25-30 years in the Republic of Tatarstan, thanks to the joint activities of the scientific community led by scientists of our university and the Academy of Sciences, the general public and the government of the Republic Significant success has been achieved in the field of national language policy. Conditions have been created for the development of languages and cultures of representatives of all peoples living on the territory of the Republic. We are very pleased that one of the main platforms for developing concepts, scientific and methodological work in all these areas today is the Institute of Philology and Intercultural Communication of Kazan Federal University. It employs a highly qualified team of scientists and professors. The Kazan International Linguistics Center successfully operates, organizing language courses, advanced training programs, professional retraining, and international language certifications in the state languages of the Republic and in all languages that are in demand today in the country and the world. 3 Tata language courses annually organized by the Institute of Philology and Intercultural Communication of the Kazan Federal University, together with the Commission under the President of the Republic of Tatarstan on the preservation and development of the Tata language, are very popular among the population of the Republic. After electronic registration, hundreds of listeners, depending on their level of language competence, are divided into several language groups, from beginner to advanced, and begin training. In all groups, classes are conducted by highly qualified professors of our institute, those who have the experience of intensive language teaching. In the course of training, course participants acquire communication skills and abilities in the Tata language, improve the linguistic and ethnocultural competences necessary for communication situations of everyday communication. The work of our professors, who have modern methods of teaching the Tata language for a wide variety of categories of students in hand, help to overcome language and psychological barriers, fear, and learn to speak Tata within the scope of the topics provided by the program. In recent years, thanks to the tireless concern of the leadership of the Republic of Tatarstan about the equal functioning of the 2 state languages, Russian and Tata, by order of the Office of the President of the Republic of Tatarstan, short-term courses and advanced training courses in the Tata and Russian languages for the leadership, heads of the executive authorities of the Republic have been launched. To date, such courses have already been held twice, according to specially developed programs where more than 100 learners were trained, including 20 ministers and other leading officials of the Republican scale. The online school Anatole Mother Tongue, supervised by scientists of the Institute of Philology and Intercultural Communication, has received an even greater resonance all over the world. This project has been launched by the President of our Republic, Rustam Nurgalevich Minnikhanov, back in 2013. The uniqueness of this educational resource lies in the fact that it provides an opportunity for each user to study the Tata language free of charge as a means of speech communication, taking into account international linguistic competencies, as well as to get acquainted with the culture and traditions of the Tata people. The advantages of this distance course in comparison with the traditional teaching methodology are teaching according to the level of the user, media support of the entire course, the presence of the practical laboratory for training phonetic, vocabulary, and grammar skills, a system of tracking results to assess the effectiveness of training. The user can start learning from any level. To do this, first he must determine his current level of proficiency in the Tata language by the main types of speech activity, and then indicate the level that he would like to achieve. As a result, the computer provides the user with information on the level of to start learning. The most important element of the online course is speaking sessions in real time, where users have the opportunity to communicate with teachers of the Center for Methodological Support of the Online School of the Institute of Philology and Intercultural Communication of Kazan Federal University, developing their communication skills. This makes it especially attractive to those users who live outside the language environment and cannot directly communicate with native speakers. Currently, the online school Anatole has about 40,000 registered users. Among them are residents of the Republic of Tatarstan, representatives of other regions of the Russian Federation, as well as users from more than 150 countries of the world: Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Azerbaijan, Belarus, Turkey, Japan, Australia, the USA, Germany, Finland, Canada, and other countries. Anatole Online School won the Keyword All Russian Prize, established by the Federal Agency for Ethnic Affairs of the Russian Federation, in the Best Multimedia Project nomination. An equally large-scale project for the preservation and development of native languages is the KILS-2021 Institute, created in 2014 on the basis of the Institute of Philology and Intercultural Communication of the Kazan Federal University, as part of the implementation of the measures of the State Program of the Republic of Tatarstan for the preservation, study, and development of the state languages of the Republic of Tatarstan and other languages in the Republic. It is named after an outstanding Tatar educator and is designed to develop cooperation in the field of education to support, popularize, and develop the Tatar language culture in the region of the Russian Federation, the Tatar and Russian languages and cultures in the countries of near and far abroad. The Institute is guided by the experience of successful and well-known similar world educational centers such as Goethe Institute, Cervantes Institute, and the relatively new Confucius Institute and Yunus Emre Institute. Today, the KILS-2021 Institute has 11 educational and cultural centers in such cities of Russia and abroad as Moscow, St. Petersburg, Bishkek, Nur-Sultan, Ekaterinburg, Ufa, Penza, Cheboksary, Ulyanovsk, Tobolsk, Samara. In 2021, the 12th center will open Barda region. As part of the work of the Institute, the following are organized: 3 courses for those wishing to study the Tatar language, testing of citizens for knowledge of the Tatar and Russian languages, scientific and practical conferences, content and cultural and educational events, and popularizing the Tatar and Russian languages and cultures. The learners of the centers of the KILS-2021 Institute show great interest in the monthly online lectures of scientists from Kazan Federal University on various aspects of the Tatar language, literature, and history. In 2017, the KILS-2021 Institute was awarded the All-Russian Keyword Prize of the Federal Agency for Ethnic Affairs for the preservation of linguistic diversity in the nomination for the promotion of languages of Russia abroad. The problem of teaching the Tatar language to great masses of the population, as well as students of educational organizations of various types and levels, is inextricably linked with the solution to the issue of determining the current level of language proficiency in order to build a further educational perspective, language certification in the Tatar language. For this, in 2014, on the basis of our institute, within the framework of the State Program of the Republic of Tatarstan, preservation, study, and development of the state languages of the Republic of Tatarstan and other languages in the Republic of Tatarstan, the Center for Language Certification in the Tatar language was created. It successfully solves the problems of developing and implementing international standards of Tatar language proficiency corresponding to the common European competencies of language proficiency, testing of citizens living in the Russian Federation, near and far abroad, for knowledge of the Tatar language. The collective body of the Institute, within the framework of the implementation of the State Program of the Republic of Tatarstan, preservation, study, and development of the state languages of the Republic of Tatarstan and other languages in the Republic of Tatarstan, publishes the international journal Tatarica. It is devoted to the problems of studying the Tatar language and literature, history, as well as education and culture. The journal is published in Russian, Tatar, and English. We believe that one of the most important means of sustaining native languages is a project aimed at creating a system of bilingual and multicultural education. The beginning of the 21st century is characterized by a tendency towards the globalization of the life of the world community. Languages are the main vehicles for interaction and cooperation in the social and economic, cultural and political spheres of the life of modern society. This is especially important for the Republic of Tatarstan, a multinational region with a multilingual population closely integrated into the world's social, economic, and cultural space. Therefore, the key task of a modern school of a new type in the Republic of Tatarstan is teaching multilingualism to school children, not only at the communicative level, but also at a deeper subject level. Both the personal and professional careers of the citizens of the new millennium will depend on the knowledge of various languages, and moreover, the ability to think and act in these languages. This task is very difficult and, in our opinion, can be solved only gradually. Any multilingualism begins with bilingualism. We took the first steps in this direction back in the 2018-2019 academic year, when a large-scale training of bilingual teaching staff began by although the Republic of Tatarstan, 125 students from 8 regions of the Russian Federation and 29 municipalities of the Republic of Tatarstan were admitted to Kazan Federal University for special bilingual educational programs of a dual profile, mathematics and computer science, history and social studies, and others. In the 2019-2020 academic year, 265 students were already enrolled in these programs. Since 2020, admission to special multilingual educational teacher training programs has begun. At present, almost 600 students are studying on the basis of the project for the training of bi- and multilingual pedagogical personnel on the basis of our institute. And in addition, retraining and advanced training of polylingual pedagogical personnel is being carried out. Collaboration with education organizations has originated within the framework of the Republican project Adimnar, the Path to Knowledge and Agreement. This project in the Republic is supervised by the first president of the Republic of Tatarstan, UNESCO Goodwill Ambassador, Hero of Labor of the Russian Federation, Shaimiev Mintimer Sharipowicz. The process of multilingual pedagogical staff training, which involves conducting the education process in 3 languages, is very complicated and practically has no analogues in domestic pedagogical education. How difficulty reveals itself in the fact that all 3 languages are used as a means of educational and cognitive activity in the process of professional training. Therefore, the foundation for the preparation of a multilingual teacher is based on the methodology of subject-language integrated learning, KIL, which is successfully used in various countries of Europe and Asia. It allows teaching and learning subjects through a non-native language, as well as developing knowledge and skills in the subject area, language competence, and cognitive abilities simultaneously. Our scientists are developing bi- and multilingual strategies for educational, cognitive, and communicative and research activities of students, contributing to their intellectual development. I think that the experience of Kazan Federal University in this area may be of significant interest to other regions of the country and the world. It is symbolic that the Kazan International Linguistic Summit, Linguistic Diversity in Global World, is being held in 2021, which was declared the Year of Native Languages and National Unity in our Republic by the decree of the President of the Republic of Tatarstan. The main goals of this important educational project are the preservation and development of the native languages, culture and traditions of all peoples living in our Republic, the strengthening of the unity of the multinational people of the Russian Federation. Our summit is also dedicated to the Year of Native Languages and National Unity. The summit is one of the preparatory stages for the International Congress of Linguists at the Kazan Federal University in 2023. The Institute of Linguistics and the Institute of Linguistic Research of the Russian Academy of Sciences, the Russian Society of Teachers of Russian Language and Literature, and the International Association of Teachers of Russian Language and Literature are taking part in organizing and conducting the current summit together with the Kazan Federal University and the Permanent International Committee of Linguists. I would like to express my personal gratitude to their leaders, prominent world-renowned linguists, Professor David Bradley from Australia, advisor to the President of the Russian Federation on Cultural Affairs, Chairman of the Russian Language Council, and the President of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Ilyich Tolstoy, Professor, member of the European Academy, Director of the Institute of Linguistics of the Russian Academy of Sciences, Andrei Alexandrovich Kibrik, corresponding member of the Russian Academy of Sciences, Director of the Institute of Linguistic Research of the Russian Academy of Sciences, Evgeny Vasilievich Golovko, and, of course, Rector of Kazan Federal University, Academician of the Russian Academy of Education and the Academy of Sciences of the Republic of Tatarstan, Professor Gafurov Ilshat Rifkatowicz, and all colleagues from our university who took an active part in organizing and conducting this summit. Thank you for your attention.
Большое спасибо, уважаемый Радиф Рифкатович, за ваше глубокое и содержательное выступление. Thank you very much, dear Radif Rifkatович, for your thoughtful and profound presentation. Ну и сейчас слово для представление второго участника первой пленарной сессии саммита предоставляется моей уважаемой коллеге, доктору филологических наук Эльзаре Васильевне Гафиятовой. The floor for the presentation of the second participant of the first plenary session of the summit is given to my distinguished colleague, Doctor of Philology, Эльзара Васильевна Гафиятова. Welcome, please.
Спасибо, уважаемый Искандер Энгелевич, за предоставленное слово. Уважаемые гости и участники саммита, позвольте представить вам следующего докладчика. С пленарным докладом «Why language counts more than a Siberian tiger» выступит заместитель генерального секретаря Постоянного комитета лингвистов и генеральный секретарь Международного съезда лингвистов ICL-21, запланированного к проведению в 2023 году на базе Казанского федерального университета профессор Камиля Хаманса. Thank you, Искандер Энгелевич, for giving me a floor. Dear guests and the participants of the summit, let me introduce the next speaker. I present you Associated Secretary General of Permanent Committee of Linguists and Secretary General of the International Congress of Linguists, ICL-21, planned to be held within the walls of Kazan Federal University in 2023, Professor Kamil Hamans, and his presentation, Why a Language Counts More Than a Siberian Tiger. So please, Kamil, Professor Hamans, you are welcome.
Thank you very much for your introduction, Elzara. And let me start with the presentation immediately. And there are, of course, a lot of, let's say, biological or ecological arguments why loss of part of the creation is lost in the ecological chain, and so why, let's say, the loss of a plant, of an animal is a real loss to the world. All plants and all animals have their own place in the food chain, so the disappearance of a species thus affects the whole chain, and therefore, in the long run, also threatens humanity. And that is an argument which is often used to protect flora and fauna, but sometimes also languages and cultural artifacts. However, the loss of social and cultural phenomena such as languages or religions, however, you could call that more or less the same, but there is a difference. The worldview of people is expressed in their language and religion and not in plants or in animals. And so loss of cultural phenomena means a loss of knowledge and tradition. So it is maybe a bit more, or at least different from the loss of flora and fauna. There is also an aesthetic argument why we should defend flora, fauna, and cultural events. There is something going on here. I don't know what. Yeah, now we are back on the first slide. That wasn't meant. Okay, I'll continue. So plants and animals are not only valued for the biological function, but above all for their beauty. So when a Siberian tiger will disappear, or the last Siberian tiger will disappear, then a thing of beauty will be lost. And folklorists and language enthusiasts take the same position when it comes to folk culture, to vernaculars, dialects, and exotic languages, or languages in general. And they see the beauty of these phenomena and therefore regard the disappearance of these phenomena of languages, cultures, religions as a loss of beauty. And they see giving up diversity as an impoverishment, which it is, of course, but there is more. The initiative of language activists go a step further. The interest in endangered languages was not a matter of language life, of cultural preservation. It were language activists who claimed language rights. And these activists belonged to minorities whose languages were threatened. And for instance, the Flemish in Belgium, they were second-class citizens. French was the main and the first language, and so the Flemish had to fight for their rights. The Basque and the Catalans in Spain still do the same. The Frisians in the Netherlands, in a way, too. And the German-speaking minority in Alto Adige or Südtirol too. And all these minorities, the ones I mentioned here, they used even violence measures to fight for their rights in 1950s, 60s and 70s, since they felt oppressed, considered as second-class citizens, and their economic prospects were less than those of the majority language speakers. And I said it started in the 1950s, and some of those minorities even used violence. And that was why international organizations started to think about minority rights. In 1950, the Council of Europe accepted the Convention of Human Rights. But that was a very general convention. In 1966, the United Nations accepted the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, in which the rights of minorities are expressed as well, but it is still a very general convention. In 1998, the Council of Europe, and the Council of Europe is not the EU, the Council of Europe is a Strasbourg-based organization of which Russia is a member too. The Council of Europe accepted in 1998 the Framework Convention for the Protection of National Minorities. And this is a convention which deals with national minorities in a very detailed way, but it is not a convention about languages. That is the European Charter. The first discussions about the European Charter started in the 1950s and 60s in the Council of Europe, but it lasted till 1992 that the Council of Europe accepted the European Charter for regional or minority languages, and that was due to the actions by people from Flanders, from Northern Ireland, from Spain, from the north of Italy, and all these minorities who fought in the 1950s, 60s and 70s for their right, they were at the foundation of this European Charter. And it took another 6 years before the Charter came into force in 1998. And the aim of the Charter is to protect and to promote the rights of speakers of traditional, regional and minority languages. Traditional, regional and minority languages, not the minority languages of immigrant workers. And the Charter says explicitly diversity implies cultural wealth. So it is more or less that aesthetic or ecological argument I mentioned in the beginning. Outside Europe, people thought about rights of minority languages or endangered languages too. In the United States, for instance, there is a tradition of linguistic anthropology started with Boas and Sapir and Benjamin Lee Wolf, and we have a whole session at this summit devoted to the work of Sapir. In 1991, the Linguistic Society of America organized a panel on language endangerment. It was organized by Colette Craig, who had worked in Nicaragua, and Ken Hale. And it was on the occasion of the celebration of the 500th anniversary of the discovery of America. Long before the discovery of America, and the discovery of America was not done, of course, by Columbus, as we now know, by the Scandinavians came first, but of course the indigenous people were already for thousands and thousands of years. But okay, this 500th anniversary was used as an excuse to organize the panel on language endangerment, but immediately there was a wave of protest of the Alliance of Indigenous Communities. They said, we are here much longer than all these newcomers and these new languages, and especially English. The year after the LSA panel, Language, the main journal on linguistics, and it is the journal of the Linguistic Society of America, devoted a whole issue to the endangerment of languages and started a debate about the role of linguistics in situations of language endangerment. And that is a discussion, for instance, between Peter Ladefoged and Nancy Dorian. And Peter Ladefoged defended the point of view that there should be a language unity, since he saw the preservation and the promotion of endangered languages as a preservation of tribalism. And you can imagine that Nancy Dorian was against it. And it was not only the Council of Europe or the Linguistic Society of America who thought about the rights of endangered languages. As I said in the opening remarks of this summit, in 1991, Bobby Robbins and Bob Uhlenbeck, they published their first survey of language endangerment, endangered languages. And in 1999, the United Nations came up with a declaration for the rights of indigenous people, in which languages are mentioned. And in 2003, UNESCO accepted a convention for the safeguarding of the intangible cultural heritage, in which language is a main part. And how about Russia or the Soviet language policy? Actually, in Russia, the rights of the minorities were safeguarded much earlier. That was in 1915 by the Declaration of the Rights of the People of Russia. And in 1923, that was under Lenin, you got a policy of, I'm not going to pronounce this Russian word since you all will start laughing, but in the digitalization. And post-revolutionary Russia became the first country in which minority rights were guaranteed. However, the situation changed dramatically during Stalin's time, and then the rights of the minorities were given up. The Russian Constitution of 1993 says that the Russian language is the state language on the whole territory of the Russian Federation. However, in 1682, the Constitution says the republics have the right to establish their own state language to be used together with the state language of the Russian Federation. And Article 68.3 says the Russian Federation guarantees the right to preserve their native language and to create conditions for its study and development to all of its peoples, to all ethnicities. That sounds great. However, there were later developments. In 1998, there was a revision of the law on the languages of the people of the Federation, and these changes concerned the formulation prescribing the use of the state languages of the ethnic republics, from mandatory requirements to formulations with a permissive character. And that even went a step further in the federal law of 2012 about education in the Russian Federation. And this law replaced the 1992 law on education, and it seriously reduced the ethnic component. And in 2015, the Federal Agency for Nationality Affairs came up, and the aim and priorities of this agency, according to its head, is monitoring the inter-ethnic situation in the regions of Russia and not promoting the indigenous languages or the minority languages, but promoting Russian as a means to unite the country. And of course, there is a very good reason to promote a general language, but at the same time, we had hoped that promoting the minority languages would have been an aim too. And the consequence now is that there is a risk of folklorization of minorities. And that is not only in Russia. You see that in more countries. In the current political situation, the fear of separatism predominates rather than the recognition of minority rights. Recognition of minority rights was something which came up in the late 50s and was stimulated in the 60s and came to its heydays in the 70s, 80s, 90s. But after the fall of the Berlin Wall and the upcoming political tensions, not only between Russia and Europe, but also in the rest of the world, the fear of separatism is becoming more and more prominent. And that you see, for example, in Spain, and you see it here. And that is why there is not much progress on minority language policy. However, protecting languages is much more than minority politics, and that's why we, as people, as the Comité International Permanent, the Linguistes, still consider the rights of minority languages as one of our priorities. It is the importance of the mother tongue. The language or languages in which one grows up are the languages in which people can best express themselves. And why do I say language or languages in which one grows up? We are used to one language spoken in the family, but in Africa or in New Guinea, it is often the case that 2 or 3 languages are spoken in the family: a father's language, a mother's language, and a grandmother's language, etc. If such a language is a minority language, so that mother tongue, there is a very good chance that this language will be partially or completely supplanted in the school situation or later in life. And this is, of course, at the expense of the expressive skills of the speakers of the minority languages, of the minority language. As a result, he or she has fewer opportunities, has fewer possibilities to express the emotions verbally, and their chance of well-being decreases. And this in itself should be reason enough to protect and support native languages. The fact that people can express themselves best in the language they grew up. This doesn't mean that one shouldn't teach a majority language or a world language, but next to each other. The economic disadvantages and social disadvantages of speaking a minority languages lead many parents to give up their native languages in favor of a larger language. They think that their children will get more chances when they learn the majority language from their first day. And this is especially important if the language policy is also aimed at a uniform standard language, as has been the case in France for centuries and partly still is. However, parents who themselves have a poor command of the adopted standard language can only transfer that language poorly, and that has all sorts of harmful consequences and economic damage for the following generations. And that's why this is a plea towards a multilingual society. Instead of striving for a monolingual future, we should focus on multilingualism. Monolingualism as something we should aim at is a consequence of 19th century European nationalism. That is that old nation, that old idea of one nation, one language. Each nation should have one and the same language, which should characterize the nation. That goes back to Herder. This idea of monolingualism should be replaced by an acceptance of multilingualism in the community, of course, but also a multilingualism of speakers, as this is a matter of course, in Africa already, for example. And that's why we think, as CIPL, that we should give up the idea of a monolingual future. We should aim for multilingualism, which means that we have to defend and promote minority languages, which are the native languages of groups of people in our society. And the argument for the protection and promotion of endangered languages goes much further than what I said in the beginning. Languages deserve it not only to be protected and promoted, because they are the unique creators of the human mind, and that consequently the loss of language means a loss of knowledge, insight, and tradition, or because its speakers should be treated on equal footing with speakers of larger languages. This is, of course, right, but also and above all, because the language you grow up in gives you the best chance to develop and be yourself completely. And that is why all languages deserve protection, if only to be able to continue to be used by speakers alongside one or more other languages. Thank you.
Большое спасибо, профессор Хаманс, за столь познавательный доклад. Тема была очень актуальной. Thank you very much, Professor Hamans, for such an informative presentation. It's a very prominent topic. Как уже сказал мой уважаемый коллега, Казанский международный лингвистический саммит «Языковое разнообразие в глобальном мире» будет очень напряженным. Только сегодня в разное время состоятся 3 тематические сессии по математической, квантитативной компьютерной лингвистике, по палеославистике, а также по когнитивной лингвистике. As it has already been mentioned, Kazan International Linguistic Summit, Language Diversity in Modern World, will be very uptight. Today only there will be 3 thematic sessions during the day, namely Computer and Corpus Linguistics, Paleoslavonic Studies, and Cognitive Linguistics. Кроме того, в 16 часов вас ожидает встреча с главными редакторами журналов первого квартиля International Journal of Multilingualism, издательство Taylor and Francis, Studies and Second Language Acquisition, издательство Cambridge University Press, Великобритания, а также с соредакторами журнала Theory and Practice of Second Language Acquisition, издательство University of Silesia Press. Moreover, today at 4 o'clock you will be able to meet editors-in-chief of Scopus Index Q1 journals, International Journal of Multilingualism, published by Taylor and Francis, Rotterdam, and Studies in Second Language Acquisition, published by Cambridge University Press, as well as co-editors of Theory and Practice of Second Language Acquisition, journal published by University of Silesia Press. Мы ждем вас на каждом из мероприятий саммита, которые будут весьма интересными и, как мы надеемся, полезными. На этом первая пленарная сессия саммита объявляется закрытой. We welcome you at every summit event, which will be both interesting and hopefully valuable. And that takes us to the end of the first plenary session of the summit. Thank you.